The last thing you want to hear when you need your auto insurance most is a robot with countless irrelevant menu options. Which is why with USAA Auto Insurance, you'll get great service that is easy and reliable, all at the touch of a button. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, April 14th, 2025. On the show today, I've been to Epic Universe, and special guest Jim Shull joins us. Plus, Jim Hill looks at whether Disney's going to delay its projects because of economic uncertainty. It's the Oops, All Crunchberries News edition of the Disney Dish. Let's get started by bringing in the man who says patience is like a gift card. You don't know how much you have left, and a lot of people are going to try it anyway. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len. And again, interesting that you bring up gift cards because my circle of friends and immediate family have, at this point, given up on shopping for me. I'm a miserable old man. I don't like anything. So I literally at every party, I get handed a card with a gift card in it to the effect of, I give up. I am not going to put any more time into shopping for you. You never like anything.
I mean, there are studies from economists that say that gift cards are the perfect gift.
Well, I immediately turn around and go to Amazon and buy way too many books, which again is why eventually they're going to find me crushed under a pile of books that topples over on me. But at least I'll have gotten what I wanted.
Mr. Hill, I know you're a collector, but please don't tell me now that you're collecting gift cards. There's not a box in your attic with gift cards.
No, if anything, I mean, seriously, I come home like last Friday, we had a belated birthday party down at my sister-in-law's, and I want to say I had been in the house 5 minutes and I was on Amazon already redeeming gift cards. In fact, I ordered in advance my copy of The Art of Elio, the upcoming Pixar film. So there.
Fantastic. Also with us on the show today is former executive creative director of Walt Disney Imagineering, Jim Shull. Jim, how's it going?
It's going well, Len. Thanks for asking. Although it's gone remarkably from very cold in California to very, very hot. So I'm glad to be here in this nice, cool studio recording with you guys today.
It's better if we never see the sun, I think.
Yeah, this is true.
All right, before we get started, let's do a thank you to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the show over at patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Don Sullivan, Chris Wilkins, 75, Greg Dykes, Anthony Lowbridge Ellis, James Vogel, and Cheryl Figlin Brenner. Jim and Jim, this is Epic Universe's Squeegee Team cleaning crew for the new Harry Potter Ministry of Magic attraction. They say that nobody's ever had to design a cleaning routine for a 3-story city block size standby line decorated in glossy black tile before, but their trade union, ShamWow Local 905, had them apprentice with former Windex engineers, and they quickly came up with a plan. True story.
I have to admit, I know this is in jest, but at the same time, when I look at the size and the scale of what they've done over at Epic Universe, how they are going to maintain and clean a lot of the space is a very interesting question.
I just don't want to know where they keep the toothbrushes because with all that tile you have to have grout, and you can only do it with toothbrushes.
Okay, we're already segueing out, but I'm not exaggerating. I honest to God, in my heart, believe this. Whoever did the tile work for Ministry of Magic deserves their own Thea Award. And that grout is perfect. I specifically looked at the grout because I was like, they had to have applied this with a machine or something. No. That grout is pristine. And this is the kind of content that people come to this show for.
Of course.
I look forward to going to the attraction and praying that the ride breaks down just so I can look at the grout.
It really is incredible. All right, let's do the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is sponsored by DVC Rental Store. Have you ever dreamed about staying in deluxe accommodations at Disney for a fraction of the cost? If so, the DVC Rental Store connects guests with incredible savings on Disney Vacation Club resorts. Whether you're a DVC member looking to rent your points or a guest who's looking to stay in style, the DVC Rental Store offers a seamless process for both. And don't forget, they also offer exciting point swaps for unforgettable experiences like cruises and adventures. Check them out at dvcrentalstore.com/DisneyDish. All right. Epic Universe. Let's talk about that. The previews for annual pass holders begin this Thursday, April 17th. I was lucky enough to visit it a few weeks ago. Due to the kindness of some new friends. So let's go through that real quick. You guys, Jim and Jim, you've not been there yet, right?
No. Though, interesting that
we
you
are
mentioned...
virgins in that.
Okay. I'm not going to touch that. What's interesting, though, is that Eric and Lauren Hersey actually managed to score their annual pass holders for Universal, and the first day of the annual pass holder previews, they're in there. So
fantastic.
Yep.
So because we are theme park nerds, I'm going to go into detail about every aspect of the experience, starting with the arrival. All right. So one of the reasons why I don't go to Universal as much as Disney is because living in Celebration, I have to get on I-4, and I hate getting on I-4. I literally live in Celebration, so I don't have to get on I-4 to go to the Disney parks. So doing that, having to get on I-4 to go to Universal is a huge disincentive for me. However, I can get to Epic Universe without going on I-4. So the arrival process for Epic Universe is fantastic. If you're coming from south of Orlando, if you're coming from the Disney area, you can get to Epic Universe by taking 417 to John Young Parkway. And the parking lot is a huge improvement over the parking garages. The entire getting into the parking lot aspect is much better at Epic Universe than at the rest of the Universal Resort. Everything's big, everything's wide, everything makes sense. They have a really cool roundabout as well. But getting into the park, it took me almost as long to get, it took me a little bit longer to get to Epic Universe than it does to get to the Magic Kingdom.
Wow.
Which tells you about that. All right.
Oh,
so got there right at park opening, maybe a couple minutes later. First thing I was interested in was Monsters Unchained in Dark Universe. So headed there. Unfortunately, it was down for the entire day. But I have to say that was my first experience going through one of the new portal designs into Dark Universe. And you guys are familiar with this. It's like a pipe that you go through, right? And each of the pipes is themed to the land. In this case, they have a digital display inside the pipe that displays lightning as you're going through it. And so you get inside and they've got fog machines cranked up to 11. So you've got spooky music, you've got fog machines, and you're basically in a decrepit Transylvanian town with a large manor in the back. So the atmosphere when you get in is really, really good. In the distance, you can hear something's going on in the castle, and occasionally as you're walking through the land, you can hear conversations and screams emanating from the castle. But as you go in, the first thing that you see, after you get through the portal to your right, is a set of character greeting areas. But they're not just places, to stand in front of decaying mausoleums and stuff like that. They've got, Jim, upright coffins for you to stand in for your photo op. So you can stand there with your arms crossed over your chest like you're dead in the coffin. It's fantastic. So we go through everything there, and the scale feels like an old European city. Right. It's not super wide like American cities are. It's not super narrow either, but it's a nice blend in the middle. And, it's not a straight line to everything. You've got to curve through, winding streets like you do in Europe and stuff like that. The first ride we went on was Curse of the Werewolf, which is the idea is that you've met a band of wandering entertainers in the forest. They tell you the story that the forest is cursed and that there are creatures that come out at night. Lo and behold, Jim Shull, it's one of those nights where there's a full moon out in the village, and so you're warned. You get on the roller coaster and mayhem ensues.
Yeah, how convenient is that?
I know. It's it wouldn't be a story if everything went right?
So, question for you, Len: is this mayhem by any chance involving a spinning roller coaster?
It is, in fact, a spinning roller coaster. How did you know?
I have no idea. That full moon spoke to me.
So it's an outdoor roller coaster. The queue is covered, but outdoors. For me, this was the first thing I ever won on an Epic Universe. And I don't say this lightly. It's the least good thing that I rode in the park. I'm not saying it's bad. It's going to be better at night. It's the ride itself, needs more theming. It's going to be better at night. I rode it first thing of the day. I was amped up. It was underwhelming. I will say that everything else in the land is fantastic. we got off Curse of the Werewolf and looked at the merchandise in the stores. And Jim Hill, I think I told you this because I was so excited by the merchandise. There's the hat game, like the hats that you can buy in Dark Universe is just next level. You can buy a Bride of Frankenstein hat with the shock of white, hair going up. It's tall like a stovetop. Like a stovepipe top, and it's got the shock of white in it. There's also a hat in the shape of the creature from the Black Lagoon head. So there are gills that go down and protect your ears.
There you go. I mean, again, would pay good money to be in the conference room for, these are the prototypes and
the pitch.
What didn't make it in?
I know, like what was crazier than that didn't make it in? There's also a monster makeup experience, which is, it's not Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. It's probably, Bibbidi Boo Boutique. But it's also looks like super fun. It is incredibly detailed. I'm a little bit surprised that they're willing to put fur on people in the summer. We're going to see how that goes. Like, I want to see adults walking around with that, but everything else looked great.
Were you able to actually duck into the makeup experience, or
we were? You're allowed to go in. No one was actually doing the makeup at the time, but there were photos of cast members, I guess, who had done it, and it's pretty extensive. You can do Dracula, you can do Frankenstein, you can do the werewolf. I'm sure you can do more. I don't know if you can do the Invisible Man. I don't know what that would they be applying like erasers to you? Like, I don't know how that would go.
I just a quick practical question: how many workstations did you see in the store?
I saw 1, 2, 3, 4. But I think there are more. I just sort of popped in, and there's tons of accessories that you can go with that. It is basically like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique, but for monsters. In terms of, like, you can do just the makeup. You can do makeup and costuming. I will say that makeup is pretty extensive. For anything, like for Frankenstein or for Dracula, you're applying a base coat of white or green, and that takes some time. And then the contouring that they have to do to make your face look like that is a combination of like sponges and brushes and airbrush, and there's a lot of stuff going on in it. It looked very, very complicated, but the results looked great.
Len, any idea of how long the process takes?
It has to be at least an hour.
Oof.
Yeah. Okay. 45 minutes to an hour, I'd say. It's depending on what you're getting done, but you're there for a while.
Okay. And you just mentioned Frankenstein. So again, I want to stress here, I have not been on Monsters Unchained, the Frankenstein experiment. However, by accident in my Twitter feed, got to see somebody holding their phone as they rode through maybe a minute of the attraction. And
shaky cam.
Yeah. And what's interesting, and again, I'm going to go love when you get back in and actually experience this, but it seems to be a festival of misdirection. It's animatronics, but also projection effects, also animated props, but Universal Creative mixes them up so liberally, you never entirely know what you're looking at as you zoom through this thing in the dark. So
yeah. I talked to a bunch of people who had been on it, and there are friends of the show who have worked on the attraction, and they say that it's their best work ever.
Wow.
And I believe that just based on the feedback that we've got from it. I'm really excited to see Monsters Unchained. I've got a couple more previews coming up, we'll say.
Okay.
But the whole land seems really, really well done. Das Steakhouse is a hoot. It's super creepy on the inside. Just the theming of the restaurants. I went in every restaurant. Every restaurant theme is very well done. We'll talk more about that. But, you cannot, it is a comprehensive, complete, internally consistent land, and you gotta love that. I think it's gonna be excellent at night. They were testing the lightning effects on the castle. Have you seen these? Where it looks like lightning is hitting the castle and going down the sides.
I have seen some videos, but since it's Florida, I'm waiting for the real thing.
Exactly. And we called that out, actually. We were trying to figure out, like, which of these are fake lightning rods and which of these are real. And so there are instances where you can tell which is which when you're on Curse of the Werewolf, too, but you have to look quick. So The other thing I want to mention about Dark Universe is the live entertainment that's there. Mm-hmm. So there were 2 characters that were out while we were there. One was the Invisible Man, who we didn't get to meet, but the other one was Igor. And Igor functions as the wisecracking resident of Dark Universe. He's there right as soon as you get into the portal, and he is hysterical. Just so funny. So one of our friends had longer hair and had hairy arms. So Igor walks up to him and goes, "Oh, you are here for the D werewolf treatment. Excellent. I can see we have much work to do with you." Stuff like that. Must get this done before dark. Anyway, so super fun, characters in that land, but that's not the only land with great walk around characters. We'll talk about that too. Okay. So that was our introduction to Dark Universe. You guys have any questions on that before I go? Did I miss anything?
No.
Well, the only question I really have is, it sounds like they really went, deeply into the mythology of the famous monsters from Universal. So is there any possibility that will actually put off people who are maybe a little bit more timid because they don't want scares?
No. I didn't think it was scary. It's definitely not Halloween Horror Nights level of scary. It's, if you're familiar with the stories, you remember the old Dracula stories and the classic monster stories. It's exactly like that. It's a lot of theming and a lot of insinuation of things. But if you're just walking around, it feels like this is the exact right level of scary for everyone.
Okay. Good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah. No, I didn't feel threatened or freaked out, and there are no jump scares or anything like that, on it. I will say for the Curse of the Werewolf ride, there's no inversions or anything like that. It's basically like a Slinky Dog Dash, but werewolf themed. Slinky Dog Werewolf? Slinky Werewolf Dash?
So you're saying short.
It's short. There's
and spinning.
Spinny, Slinky Dog Dash has more to see. One of my criticisms with the park in general, it's not a criticism, but it's just an observation. It's a brand new park. The landscaping needs time to grow, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it takes 20 years to get a 20-year-old tree, no matter when you start, right? So, the next thing we visited the next thing I want to talk about was Super Nintendo World. And the 3 of us have been to Super Nintendo World in Universal Studios Hollywood. And we went on Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge while we were there. This is almost exactly the same kind of thing. So you go through a portal, you go up a set of escalators to get into Super Nintendo World. I will say this, if you are easily stimulated or you're easily overstimulated, you will want to take some sort of medication before you get on that escalator, because it just bombards you with sights and sounds, and it's inescapable. So if you need to wear headphones to go in there, if you need to do something to calm yourself before you get in, there's just a lot going on. And I mean that in a good way. It's visually and orally, stunning. So, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge, the line winds through the castle, just like we did. We basically walked through the entire thing. Just like in the Universal Studios Hollywood version, one of the things that I love about this setup is all of the instructional videos that you go through to figure out everything from how do you put on your augmented reality cap to how do you play the game is done without speaking words. So it's not in English or anything like that. It's all done through cartoons that anyone in any language can understand. And if you think about that, that's really hard to convey, right? But they do a great job of it. And I actually did better on Bowser's Challenge riding it this time than I did last time. I was able to figure out that if you point your eyes, the AR tracking knows where your eyes are looking, and that's where your shells are going to be thrown if you push the buttons.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did about 30% better on the second version than I did on this version than I did in Universal Studios Hollywood. Also, the other thing that I'm reminded of is this is a fairly lengthy ride. I got off of it going, if that was another 2 minutes, I probably wouldn't be having as much fun. But it may be a long line, but it's a lengthy ride for the line that you're going to wait in. So super happy with that.
And the mix of projected stuff in your upfront display, coupled with the physical environments you're in. I mean, it's again an ambitious distraction.
The AR stuff that's projected on your screen takes up almost all of your attention. For all I know, we were going through, blank walls. That was really good. Jim Shull, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. As we were standing for 4 hours in the Universal Studios Hollywood version, you commented that it takes a ton of money to build a detailed dungeon queue like they did. And if anything, this one is bigger on the inside. And it's got the same sort of Bowser statue that we saw at Universal Studio Hollywood, but there are also a ton of gags in there. Like as you're going through the library, the book titles are funny, turtle shells and how to avoid them, stuff like that, in the books. For something like that, how long does it take to plan out not only the layout of the queue, but to figure out, here are the gags that we're going to do, and here's how much of the budget we need for that?
With any attraction in a Disney park or a Universal park, you have a show writing team, and they have among their jobs to create little funny puns and asides and little ideas, and they all go into a box because they don't know where they'll be used, but they do know they will be used at some point in the future.
Okay.
Now, one note I noted was Universal said this version of Super Nintendo World is the largest of the three. Now, the three of us went to the one in Hollywood, but the first one was in Osaka. However, Osaka is very landlocked. They didn't have that limitation in Orlando. So what you saw in Epic Universe, their version of Super Nintendo World is the largest of the three.
Yeah, and it definitely felt bigger, even more so because there's an expansion area behind Mario Kart Bowser Challenge, behind the castle, for Donkey Kong Minecart Madness. Oh. There's an entire section. Yeah. So that area is, if you're looking straight ahead, you see, the Mario Kart, the castle. To the right of that is an alley or a street that goes to Donkey Kong Minecart Madness. And this is a jungle themed area because it's Donkey Kong. The appeal of this attraction, the visual appeal of it, is that just like in the Donkey Kong game, you have to jump over things. And so as you're standing in the area and you see one of the mine cars go by you on the side, a little bit of the track is outside, you see that it appears to jump a section of broken track. And Jim Shull, do you want to talk a little bit about how they did that with the ride vehicle?
Well, they did a very smart thing. They invented a ride system technology that did not exist because they wanted to follow what you see when you play Donkey Kong, which is the vehicle can jump over obstacles or even jump between tracks. So the perception as you walked into the land was you looked up and you saw the ore car, and it was rolling along tracks. However, in the reality is it really wasn't attached to the track you thought it was. It was attached to another track, one that was hidden. And so that allows the vehicle then to create the illusion of it's jumping between tracks or over tracks or jumping over obstacles. It's a great illusion, and I think they're going to be getting a Thea Award for this. If not, they deserve it.
There's a lot of Thea Award worthy things in this park. Yeah, so the way that this works is you've got the real Donkey Kong track, and there's a ride vehicle that is attached to the bottom of it like a base. And then there's a boom arm that goes straight up, and that boom arm is supporting where you sit, the actual ride vehicle itself with your seats. But your ride vehicle, the sides of it, have a set of fake wheels, and there's a fake track that those wheels, guide on as you're going through. So you never actually touch the track, and you're never really riding on the fake track. You're always on the bottom track. But the fake track in various places goes up and looks like it's broken, and that's how it jumps. The bottom ride vehicle is always on a track, but the fake track is broken. All right. And the thing that I love about this was that they maintain the illusion of the broken track even for the riders in the ride vehicle. It's not just something that you see as an observer on the side. As you're going along, you look in front of you, and there's the fake ride track is in front of you through the entire ride. And there are instances where you are looking at it and saying, this is broken. I wonder what's going to happen. So it's not just from the side in a few places. It's throughout the entire ride. And that is a thing they didn't have to do, right? You could have just been on the ride and looking around. But give Universal credit, they maintain the illusion, not just for people to get them into the ride, but once you're on the ride, there's a payoff there. I really like that a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it all sounds wonderful. And again, hopefully they'll get some recognition when it comes time for the The Awards. That said, and forgive me, I have to ask you to put on your touring plans hat here. We've talked about this ride prior to you getting into the park, and there were concerns about hourly capacity. You've ridden on this thing now. Same concerns, or?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time counting rides going on there. I think that Minecart Madness is going to do somewhere between 900 to maybe 1,100 people an hour if everything goes extremely well. Let's call it an even 1,000 just to split the difference. 1,000 people an hour is Peter Pan's Flight. Ooh. This is way more visually appealing than Peter Pan's Flight. And I think that you're going to have extremely long lines for this, especially because Super Nintendo World is going to be one of the lands open for early entry. And so it's going to look great. People are going to want to ride it. 1,000 people an hour. We're going to talk about park capacity and ride reliability as later on, but that's pretty low for that attraction. And I know that they spent that Universal Creative spent a lot of time trying to make sure that this ride runs as smoothly as possible, and they're trying to dispatch those cars as quickly as possible. The problem is you've got the general public there who's going to try and do things like, fit 6 people in a 2-passenger vehicle and whatnot. There's just people you can't control, people of behavior you can't control. If they get 1,000 an hour, they'll be lucky.
Len, you wrote it. When you were in the station, did you notice whether the vehicles were continuously creeping through the station, as in they never stopped? Or did the vehicles stop?
They definitely stopped. Yeah, they definitely stopped.
Okay,
yeah.
That's going to be a capacity hit.
Yeah, so I was looking at, if you want to get technical, I was looking at Shull around 45 seconds for unload and load. And that was best case scenario. The ride itself is somewhere between 90 and 110 seconds, depending on, speed. And, like at the very beginning, as soon as you're dispatched, there might be a slight delay. And same thing coming into the station, might be a slight delay. But if you do the numbers, each ride vehicle holds 4 people. There are 10 ride vehicles operating. It's either 135 to 155 seconds for the entire cycle. That does not equate to a lot of people per hour.
All right, going into the weeds here then, is there a handicap or is there a disabled vehicle on the circuit?
Yeah, they're
going to have to work that out.
Yeah, but I don't know I don't know how they're going to increase that. The die is cast at this point, so.
Okay. So, all right. So, moving on, we also have Yoshi, is that correct?
Yoshi's Adventure. Yeah, I wasn't sure what this was. And the best way to explain it is with analogy is it's a slow moving outdoor ride, sort of like the Tomorrowland Transit Authority People Mover, but one where you have to find 3 different colored eggs as you're going through. So you're and this is a kid's ride. It's slow moving. You're in a ride vehicle that looks like a TTA People Mover ride. There are 3 buttons on a console in front of you. Each button holds a different colored egg, red, blue, and green. As you go through the ride, you're supposed to find those color eggs and press the button when you're done. And if you do, you get a reward message at the end.
And can you collect the eggs onto your power-up band?
I did not see a place to scan the eggs, to scan a power band on the ride vehicle, but I also didn't have a power band, so I didn't look too hard.
Okay.
There are the 3 buttons. The eggs are really easy to find. This is a children's ride. I was surprised by the length. 5.5 minutes. for a cycle. It's also outdoors. So far, of the rides that we've talked about, Monsters Unchained is indoors. Curse of the Werewolf is outdoors. Bowser's Challenge is indoors. Minecart Madness has an outdoor option, or an outdoor side. Yoshi's Adventure also outdoors. So 1, 2, 3 of the 5 rides we've talked about so far are outdoors. And rain has to be a concern here, right? But overall, I mean, Super Nintendo World looked great. It very, very busy, very, very loud. A lot of people running around. I'm sure there'll be character greetings there too. But super fun. They designed it really, really well. I especially like the area around Donkey Kong. I thought that was very well themed. There's an area as you walk in where there are drums to the left of you. And, there are 3 sets of drums, which take 3 people. And if you all do the Donkey Kong drums in sync, like where you're all doing the right rhythm at the right time with the right drums, left and right, a surprise happens. Something pops up and there's a surprise. So there's some cooperation that happens, in the land as well. Some really neat built-in effects. Really liked it a lot.
Sounds like a fun place to be.
Yeah.
Especially as you said, you're coming in, if you're walking in the front gate,
Yeah.
isn't that land immediately off to your left?
Yeah. So if you imagine the park as a clock face, you're walking in at the 6 o'clock position. It's the 7 o'clock position or 7:30 right there. And then Dark Universe would be like the 10 or 11 o'clock position. Helios would be at 12 o'clock, the hotel. The other thing that made this super interesting was the week before I got my visit, I was working on the walking times between all the different points in the park on a giant map for touring plans. And so I knew where everything was just even before getting into the park. And that was really fun. Didn't have to worry about using a map. That was great. The next place we visited was Celestial Park. The big attraction there is Stardust Racers. They're side-by-side dueling coasters. So have you guys been on Velocicoaster?
Yes.
No, I have not.
And once was enough for me.
Once was enough for you. All right.
I enjoyed it, but meet old Mr. Gravity.
Yeah.
A couple of moments where I was out of my seat, and it's like, this was good. I can move on with
Let's
life.
never do this again. This is great. Let's hope it never happens again. Yeah.
There we go.
So the idea of Celestial Park is it's based on stars, right? Mm-hmm. So like constellations and stuff like that. Stardust Racers continues that sort of theming. It's a sort of like a vague steampunk Jules Verne type of ride building, and it's outdoors, but it's covered. Reasonably well themed. They because it's a side by side dueling coaster, you have lockers where you have to put in all of your stuff. And then after you go through the lockers, you go through metal detectors. And let me just say, guys, those metal detectors are serious. They are so sensitive, they picked up the foil on a single piece of Trident gum I had in my pocket. And security said, I need you to put that in a pocket with a button so it doesn't come out. And I did. But that's the level of security that's going into this, to this thing. So the ride itself, so it's a dual launch, coaster. The launch is incredible. Oh, first of all, before we talk about that, you sit down and it's not a shoulder restraint coaster. Like Velocicoaster, it is a lap restraint, meaning your shoulders and arms are free to do the Kermit flail as you're going through the ride. And let me tell you, I did that. Launch is very, very fast. There are a couple of inversions, loops, and it is a very smooth, very fast, very long coaster. I think the track is almost a mile long.
Could be. I think we have the good folks at Mach Rides located in Rust, Germany for that ride. And also the Werewolf ride. They did those 2 coasters, I believe.
Did they? Okay. Really well done. Reminded me a lot of Velocicoaster. Maybe a little less theming. But the ride experience itself, you're either, looking up at the clouds going, oh God, what have I done? Or looking straight down at the ground saying, oh God, what have I done? Right there. Or you're in a turn where, you're just looking at the track to see where you're going next. It's if you like roller coasters, you're going to love this. It's fantastic. Also, incredible ride capacity, like somewhere between 2,600 and 3,300 people an hour.
Holy cow.
Yeah. We're talking like Pirates of the Caribbean level of riders, because it's got two tracks, right?
Yeah. Well, no, that's great to hear, especially center of the park like this. So
doing the math on that, if you have a park that has 30,000 people in it and they're open for 10 hours a day and 3,200 people an hour can ride this one coaster.
Yeah.
What percentage of the people total attendance in the park on any given day could ride that coaster?
Well, this is my big question. So Universal hasn't said what the park capacity is yet. My understanding is there's no way this opens at full capacity. Like, they're just not going to do that. So if you take the riders per hour numbers that I have, and you think that that's somewhere between 30 and 40% of the people in the park, you can figure out what the max capacity is, as long as you're willing. The other factor that you need to figure out is how long of a line, what are the maximum line lengths that Universal wants to accept, right? So if they're willing to accept a 1 hour wait for everything, that capture capacity pretty low. At 2 hours, obviously it's a lot more than that. At 3 or 4 hours, it's even larger. Yeah. So one of the questions I have then is if you've got that, what's that limit that Universal wants? How long do they want the maximum line length to be? And we're not going to know that until it happens, right?
Very cool. All right. And when we get back, we'll go to the Isle of Berk. But first, this.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts will take the world by storm.
There's some big right out there, and you're gonna help me stop it.
Us?
Why, you got someplace to be?
On May 2nd,
Avengers are gone. No one's coming to save the day.
their time
I think we could be the people that are coming.
has come.
Being the hero, there is no higher calling.
Let's do this.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, only in theaters May 2nd. Get tickets now. This film is not yet rated.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Uh-oh, the last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
And we're back. Len, did we touch on everything in Celestial Park? You were mentioning the...
Two other quick things I wanted to mention. There's a Constellation Carousel, which is a kid's carousel. Very colorful, very pretty. Jim Shull, it actually reminded me a lot of Alien Swirling Saucers because you've got circles within circles spinning in it, and it reminded me of the ride mechanism that you designed for Alien Swirling Saucers.
Well, higher compliments could not be paid.
And then there was a water play area called Astronomica. Astronomica. That looks to be a nice respite from the heat during summer. That also has plenty of seating for parents to keep an eye on their kids too. So I thought that was well done. One other thing I wanted to mention, as I was walking through the various lands, there were a number of people from Universal Creative who were there who stopped me to say hi and that they love the show.
Oh.
So thank you all. I'm not going to mention any names because you guys could all get in trouble, but, or for your bad taste in podcasts, but it was really nice to hear. So thank you for that. All right. The land, one of the lands that I was super interested in seeing was Isle of Berk, which is based on the How to Train Your Dragon land. And this did not disappoint. You walk through the portal and you see a stone carving that basically tells the story of the Vikings and the dragons. And then from there, I think this is a very large, very open land with the most attractions per land of any land in Epic Universe. So, it's got Hiccup's Wing Gliders, it's got Dragon Racers Rally, it's got Fire Drill, the Viking Training Camp, and then the show, The Untrainable Dragon, but also a couple of different places to eat. So let's go through them first. The roller coaster that you see is Hiccup's Wing Gliders. And this is the best analogy is Slinky Dog Dash in Hollywood Studios. But Hiccup's Wing Gliders are faster and longer. So it's an outdoor coaster where you go through the story of the dragons. There's not a whole lot of theming, but I guess the idea, at one point it's you get a second launch through the ride track where you're in an area where there are dragons hatching and you're not supposed to be there. That's the case for the second launch. Very smooth outdoor steel coaster. It's faster. It shouldn't be any kid's first coaster, but if you've been on anything else, it's a great second coaster. Jim Shull, have you seen this?
No, I've not been to ride it yet, but no, I did see it a couple of times on YouTube in different videos that people have done on TikTok and such. It looks like it's a lot of fun. I question whether they get all of the story points apart, because one of the tasks always is once you're on the ride of any kind, you're really not paying attention to, oh, look over there. Let me tell you the story of dragons hatching. And by the way, you shouldn't be here while they're hatching. That is kind of in the back of people's minds. It's all about, let me hold on to this lap bar and pray nothing goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, there was the story details are light. I'll say that. Also, again, it's a brand new park, so the landscaping needs to mature. You see a lot of industrial stuff as you're going through it. I think that's going to be less of a problem at night, and less of a problem over time.
Len, we shouldn't leave that. I think the big point here is, of all the lands, Isle of Berk will benefit from being in Florida, because all the trees that have been planted will grow over time. And because it's Florida, you come back in a year, it's going to look much denser, much more lush than it is today.
Yeah, I mean, Florida has a 9-month growing season. It'll be fine over time. That's why I'm not super worried about it. The other thing I would mention too is this is an outdoor coaster. The queue is covered with tarps, see-through tarps, and they've also got water fountains in the queue as well. So you're outside in the queue. No air conditioning, but it's covered.
I'm curious, in the queue, are there any misters? Water misters?
It was a cool day that I was there, so if there are, they weren't running, and I would not have wanted them running. Okay. It was like, I think 72. It was a perfect day. I mean, sunny, no clouds, but also 77 degrees. So.
That's put on your snow tires living in Florida when it's 72.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The other attraction, and I thought this one was really well done for what it was. It's a take on a spinner ride like Dumbo. It's called Dragon Racers Rally. And the idea here is that you are learning to fly. Like you've got a dragon and you're learning to fly it, but you can't fly a real dragon because it's like driving a car for the first time. You got to go through a simulator. So you're sitting in a seat, and you know how on Dumbo there are mechanisms that let you push a lever up or down, and you go up or down. Jim Shull, you built this for Magic Carpets of Aladdin, right? Well, here instead of a lever, you've got wings. Right. So imagine cardboard dragon wings, and in the middle of each wing is a handle, and you grab the handles, and the wings are on pivot points. So if you push the handles forward, the wings dip down, and if you pull the handles back, the wings go up. So you're directly controlling the wings. And so when you're on the ride spinning, just like Dumbo or Magic Carpets of Aladdin, if you pull the wings back, you go up very fast. If you push them forward, you go down. Here's the interesting trick. If you push one wing and pull another, you spin almost 90 degrees to your side.
Oh.
So you can tilt forward and back and also side to side.
Does the phrase vomit comet have any meaning here?
Okay. So it's also so steep, like the pitch is so, and you're in a shoulder harness on this one. The pitch is so steep. At one point, I had started pushing my wings down, so to pitch down, but I was doing it at the peak of the height that the ride gets. So at one point, I was at the highest point of the ride, facing almost straight down, and I could feel that the only thing that was keeping me in that seat was that shoulder harness. Like I was pushed up against it. It's a great sensation. Don't get me wrong. It is a unique spin on the spinner ride. Really well done. Two things. Going back to ride capacity. Okay. There are two sides of this ride. So basically, like Dumbo has two different rides systems in the Magic Kingdom. Same thing here. You got two of these.
Yep.
Okay. Combined, I calculated the ride capacity of this ride at somewhere around 360 to 480 people an hour, which is, not to put too fine a point on it, a water slide of capacity. It's half of one side of Dumbo if things go wrong here.
Oof.
Yeah, it's a quarter of a Dumbo ride. 360 to 480 people an hour. And here's the issue, right? There are 12 seats on each side, so 24 seats total. The ride can last anywhere from 60 seconds to, mine was a minute 45. The load and unload time is another 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So one ride cycle for both sides is 4 minutes, which means you can do 15 rides of 12 people an hour. 12 times 15 is 180 people an hour for one side. For two people, it's 300, for two sides, 360. That is incredibly low ride capacity.
A quick question, Len. Where is this positioned in Berk? Because it sounds like this is a great kinetic, it sounds like, but capacity-wise, it doesn't sound like it's going to deliver the goods.
If you're walking into Isle of Berk, the first thing you see is the lagoon, and then you see fire drill, which we'll talk about, and then some photo op opportunities. Dragon Racers Rally should be, if I'm recalling correctly, at the 11 o'clock position. Most of the stuff you're going to want is to the right, but this one's to the left.
Okay.
But it looks great, and when you're on it, it's fun. It's also a covered queue with tarps, so it's outdoors, but there are fans and everything. But that ride capacity is really, really, really low.
Len, you just said that you're in a land that really attracts families. It has. We haven't talked about Fire Drill, but you did talk about the coaster.
Yeah.
Does Rally, because of its potential intensity, seem out of place because it would attract maybe more teens, tweens, young adults? Definitely not little kids. And by the way, I didn't ask, what is the height requirement?
Oh, it's a good question. I think it's 42 inches. I'll have to go back and look for Dragon Racers Rally. There's definitely a height requirement. You would not put small children on it because of the harness system. It's not for kids. There are rides for kids: Fire Drill, Viking Training Camp, the International Bull Dragon Show. Those are for kids. Yeah, but this is not a small child park. This is larger kids, teens, and adults. The whole park.
Okay,
the whole park.
Yeah, so which is fine, right? In fact, I think the theming of the entire park is for people who can appreciate the references in the theming, if that makes sense. Yeah. Let's talk about Fire Drill, though. So this is Fire Drill. The idea is that there are dragons in the area. They are fire-breathing dragons. Occasionally, fires erupt in the village, and you have to put them out. So you're on a boat in the water, and you have water pumps that are used to put out fires. So as you're going through, there are targets that look like fire, and you're supposed to spray the targets with water. You can also spray other boats that are passing by, and you can spray lots of things in the land. It looks fantastic. The boats move slow, so it's not like Kali River Rapids in terms of like turbulence. The thing that I thought that was super interesting, again coming back to ride capacity, the cycle time for the ride is 5 minutes and 30 seconds. There are 8 boats, Sorry, there's between 6 and 8 boats operating. There were 8 boats operating when I was on it, or when I was there. And each of them holds 8 people. So 5.5 minutes at that, you're still looking at 700, 800 people an hour if everything goes right. And again, that's one half of a Dumbo for a ride that's in the center of the land that looks like a lot of fun. Now, granted, if it's cold outside, if it's the first part of the morning, you're not going to want to get soaking wet on this ride. That's going to limit some of the line length. Mm-hmm. But I mean, this park opens on Memorial Day. That's the start of summer. You can see how that's going to be really, really popular in the middle of the day.
But conversely, isn't this the only ride in that park that's a water ride?
It is, and it's interesting because there are I think there's only one other ride system like it in the United States. Yeah. I know there's one in Alton Towers that is similar to it, but it's a unique type of ride system that we haven't seen before. Give them credit for that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Give them the credit. I think this would be incredibly popular in the hot summer months, which is in Florida.
Yeah.
9 months of the year.
Yeah. So I know I'm harping a lot here on ride capacity, but let me just say the theming is really well done. The rides in general are extremely well done for what they are. I'm harping on capacity because that's sort of what I focus on, but don't get me wrong. These are all great rides. They're all a lot of fun. So.
Okay.
Next thing was Viking Training Camp, which is a playground area for kids. You know that I like to participate in things, so I went through it and ran through rope bridges and up and down stairs and stuff like that. It's a lot like Redwood Challenge Trail at DCA, and we all went on that, right?
We did.
Just like that, Viking training. Yeah, there's bells to ring, there's drums to drum. It's a place to let your kids blow off steam, and if you're a parent and you want to let your kids run around without worrying about them, running out the wrong exit. I think there's only one way in and out, so you can monitor that. Yeah, really well done. Also covered in certain places, so plenty of chances to rest.
Okay.
The Untrainable Dragon show was only running one show when we were there, and I wanted to go see another show, so I didn't get a chance to see that. I'm told it is the premiere show in the park. Looking forward to going back and seeing that.
Yeah, and this is also, as I understand it, a clone is the wrong phrase to use, but there's a Untrainable Dragon show at Universal Studios Beijing as well, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that. Okay.
Okay. So, but which now brings us to the restaurant, which I have to admit I loved your description of earlier. So please share.
Yeah. So Meat Hall is the description, and if it had a tagline, and Universal, feel free to use this. If Meat Hall had a tagline, it would be, "Do you like meat?" So there were 4 of us there, so we got whatever the giant platter thing is, and it consisted of turkey legs, like a pile of turkey legs, a pile of sausage, a pile of salmon, some bowls of like quinoa salad and other salads, and then the largest mound of steak fries I have ever seen in one place outside of a Costco. Like, and let me tell you, it all tasted really, really good. Like I was with friends who I hadn't known before, so I didn't want to eat with both hands at the same time. So I was polite and only nibbled, but everything tasted great. You can tell that they made the restaurants for social media, and I mean that in a good way. Like, on the inside, it looks great. The theming is consistent. It's even like the soda dispensers and stuff like that. Those areas, it's all consistent. You're sitting at a picnic table type benches that are also themed. And then the platter itself is something that you just take social media pictures of. It's just, the presentation is amazing. A lot of fun.
Okay.
I really like Meat Hall a lot. That's where we ate for lunch.
All right. Now, did you manage when you were in the Isle of Berk? I mean, that there have been, social media, especially over the past week or so, has shown a lot of imagery, a lot of footage of the Hiccup and Toothless meet and greet. Did you guys manage to get to do that?
Yeah, and they look fantastic. So my understanding is those are who's the company who does the Boston Robotics, the dogs?
Oh, yes.
Those are reskinned Boston Robotics dogs, and they are very fluid in their movement. That is also in a covered area as well. That's going to be super popular. And the animatronics move very realistically. I would say though that's my second favorite character encounter in Isle of Berk. The other one is Walk Around Vikings. And I don't know if anyone has ever uttered the phrase sassy Viking before, but they are so funny. They'll walk up to you and or mark on your lack of wearing animal skins. Like, cause they're wearing animal skins, cause they're Vikings, right? Like, why do you not have animal skins on? Anyway, so and they'll make fun of your appearance and stuff like that. They'll make fun of your food choices. It's just really, really well done. Imagine the stepsisters from Cinderella, but in Viking costumes. Like that was it. Really, really funny. Jim Shull, you wanted to mention something about Isle of Berk before we move on?
Well, the thing that struck me, Isle of Berk does appeal to social media, and for this reason. As you just said, there are a lot of robotic dragons throughout the entire land, and that struck me as fulfilling the promise of what was promised and shown for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
Now, at one point, they, proudly that team promised for both Anaheim and Florida that there'd be walking bantas that you could ride. There would be robots. There would be droids. There'd be aliens. And none of that ever saw the light of day. When Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened, none of that was available for people to enjoy. So,
and it's still not, right?
Yeah, as I look at Isle of Berk, I think, wow, this would have been what Galaxy's Edge was supposed to have been. Right. Alive and filled with characters.
One of the things that I had heard about Disney's version of the Star Wars robots, they were trained to be either autonomous or semi-autonomous. But to manage all of that technology, and, let's face it, a lot of the Star Wars droids are, the size of small trash cans. The concern didn't come from the Imagineers about like reliability or would it work or anything like that. It came from lawyers who said, what happens the first time that, one child pushes this droid over onto another child? Like, how do we handle that?
Well, that may be the case, Len, but the reality is, Disney has been playing around with droids for a long time. I remember, do you remember the moving trash can in Epcot?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you paint it, put a little Star Wars magic on it, that is the basic technology. So I would dispute the legal argument. But what I do, going back to Isle of Berk, what I love about it is when I look at social media and I see benches that look like dragons and carvings that look like dragons and the architectural details. And then on top of that, I see live dragons. The term flood the zone occurs. It feels like the promise is come to Isle of Berk to see dragons. And, lo and behold, when I go to Isle of Berk, I get to see dragons. And we haven't even seen what they've rumored to have next coming up, which are flying dragons.
Flying dragons, yeah. As soon as you started talking about that, I was reminded that while I was walking through the land, I met someone who listens to the show. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Who said, you should come back when the dragons are flying.
It's like,
so they definitely plan to do it.
Yeah. Again, going back to Galaxy's Edge, and I'm not trying to pile on that team, but, the original promise there was to have flying Star Wars craft, X-Wings and such. And we did see one. We saw one. Well, two, but we only saw them once. And that was for the ribbon cutting there in Florida. We never saw it in Anaheim. But again, that was the promise that when you walked into Galaxy's Edge, it would be alive. And that is a promise that's been fulfilled by Isle of Berk.
Right. Yeah, I would say the two things that feel different between Isle of Berk and Galaxy's Edge, Isle of Berk definitely has more visual movement apparent, and that's half the battle right there. The other thing is there's water, and water, as a piece of decoration in a theme park is always welcome, but here it's also kinetic in some places. And, water moving is just pleasing, right? I mean,
yeah, and that was a design intent on the part of the team
I know,
who
I got it,
were
yeah.
former Imagineers who designed Isle of Berk.
Yeah.
Again, you don't unsee what you've learned. And so having rides out in the open that are kinetic, having water, having dragons, all of that combines to create a living, breathing land.
Yeah, it's very open and very water-based. You can tell when you walk in.
Okay, and just one final note here, and just a throwback to when Islands of Adventure opened in 1999. You walk to the back of the park, and I remember that they had the Jurassic Park Visitor Center in the position of their castle. But if you went back there, you could have a Triceratops encounter.
Yeah. This is a lot like that. Yeah.
That's it exactly. And the notion was that for whatever reason, getting to be next to a life-size animatronic Triceratops just didn't excite people. Whereas to enter a space where it's like, it's Hiccup and it's Toothless from the 3 How to Train Your Dragon movies, not to mention the live-action movie that's coming out, in a month or so.
Perfect timing. Yeah.
No, that's it exactly. That to deliver the goods, to give people, two characters they know that you get to interact with. This thing is going to print money.
And the kids that I saw that were doing the character greetings could not have been more delighted with meeting the dragons, right? It's just like petting them, and everything, and trying to hug them and stuff like that. It was really kind of heartwarming to see, and so that means that that Universal did a really good job with that.
True.
Well, again, going back to your spreadsheet, Len, I would be interested in counting the capacity of all those encounters.
Oh God, it's got to be in the low hundreds. It's not a lot. During the previews, Universal wasn't rushing anybody through, and there was a decent line of 10 to 12 people. I was guessing everything probably took about 90 seconds each. So, that tells you what, 2 every 3 minutes. So 40 an hour, 40 families, 40 groups, 3 people a group.
But it was interesting because we talked a moment, we should return to the Triceratops encounter. I walked through that. I saw it and it was brilliant, but I had to wait an hour in line, a beautiful line, but still an hour for my 5 minutes with the dinosaur. And look, I find it humorous as the next guy to see a dinosaur peeing. But that wasn't worth an hour to me. Whereas what Isle of Berk does is it's kind of more, chance encounters.
Right.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, would I wait half an hour for it? I mean, yeah. Would I wait an hour? Now you're starting to, that is starting to ask questions there, especially because we don't know how long the park is going to be open. Anyway, all right. So the land that we haven't talked about, boys, is Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry. For my money, it's the best portal land in the park. First of all, just to give you the reference for how big this is, it is like going from Hogsmeade Village to Diagon Alley in terms of size and detail. It is that jump again to Ministry of Magic.
Wow.
You know how theme parks use forced perspective to make you feel like things are bigger than they are, right? So we want to show you a 4-story building, and in reality, the bottom floor is full-sized, the next story is 7/8, the third story is 7/8 of that, and the fourth story is 7/8 of that. I honest to God think Universal thought, you know what? We're not great at math. We're just going to build a 4-story building. It's that big. Like we're not going to do fractions. We're going to build a 4-story building. It's huge. I don't think there's an unprinted surface, vertical surface anywhere in that land. There are details from the stories on every vertical surface that can hold paint in there. It is mind-boggling in terms of how much there is to see in there. So you come in, you're going down a street. If you go immediately to the left, there's another avenue that takes you to Ministry of Magic. Straight ahead of you is Circus Arcanu. And then to the right is Bar Moonshine, which is where I went first. I don't know about you guys. Cause it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You need a drink.
Of course.
So maybe it's 10:30. Who knows? Call it brunch. So went to the bar, had a few drinks, tried those out. First time I've ever had absinthe. which is interesting.
Makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. The first thing we did though was to bop in for the Circus Arcanu show. So it looks like you're entering a small circus tent, and the idea is that it's a mysterious circus with fortune tellers and things like that. And it follows the story of Fantastic Beasts. But once you get into the circus tent, which is the queue area, in reality, the theater itself is in the giant building behind you. It's a 550 seat theater. The show runs about 23 minutes. And the story is, you forgive me, I don't remember the characters, but there's a gentleman who's acquired a suitcase from Salamander?
Newt Scamander. Yes.
Scamander, thank you.
Oh,
okay.
Show off.
His suitcase has been acquired, and the person running it is the ringmaster of the circus. Presumably in the first act, in the pre-show, you're understanding that he wants to bring the suitcase into, I think to make the creatures star of the show. Chaos ensues when the suitcase opens accidentally, and then you're ushered in for, I guess, what is Act 2? It's a covered theater. It's air conditioned, 550 seats, not a bad seat in the house. It is a beautiful show. The visual elements of the show are stunning. It looks like an old timey circus with the velvet, plush purple curtains, burgundy curtains, and the stage setup and everything. But guys, the effects. There's Jim Hill, you and I saw one of the effects in this show 2 years ago, 2 years ago, done on a soundstage. And so we know how the effect works, right? But seeing it happen in the show, and I'm not going to give away what it is, it involves a broom. Seeing it happen in person, knowing that I know what's going on behind the scenes, I still couldn't figure out how they made it into production with it. It was done that well. It is a fantastic show. I think it's the best theater show in Orlando in a theme park right now.
Holy cow.
Also, there are aerialists in there. I believe the one that I saw came from Halloween Horror Nights Nightmare Fuel. So like professional level aerialists in there. Really, really well done show. I'm not going to give you the story details, but God, it's beautiful. The effects are amazing. The pacing is very good on it. Like I would watch that 2 or 3 times. So
how long was the show, Len?
23 minutes. And here's the interesting thing. I think what I heard was Universal wants to run 24 to 28 of those shows a day, which would mean, so it's a 23-minute show, right? So which means that if you want to run 24 of them, you have to unload and load 550 seats in 7 minutes. And people don't move that fast.
No, especially in Florida. In fact, remember your Disney history here about when they first opened the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, and they did things like they had to go back and retime the automatic doors because, again, people in Florida don't move that fast. So
yeah, I mean, just to put it in perspective, I've counted 1,000 people in line for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train in the morning. And I've also timed how long it takes those 1,000 people to get in line. And on some days, it takes them upwards of 20 minutes to physically form a line. And so half of that is 10 minutes, 500 people. But remember, you got 550 people going in, 550 people going out. You're back to the 20-minute thing, right? So I know they can, it's a theater and it's slightly different, and less walking distance, but 7 minutes seems optimistic. I mean, God bless them if they can do it, but more realistically, I think they're going to end up around 20 shows a day.
But again, Len, is this a point where the industrial engineers, when they're developing the park, have a theory of operation?
Yeah.
But the reality is, we've had cast members from Universal, we have project team members, family members.
That's the thing. Like, everyone who's seen this stuff right now has been a theme park professional.
That is true. And they're going to move a lot faster than your average normal guest. So the question is, what they will do after this park officially opens and has 30 days under their belt of real people in real environments in real Florida heat. How do you then adjust your business plan? How do you change things up? Do you shorten the show? Do you move people faster?
So I actually thought about that. I don't think you can cut anything from the show. I think they just agree to do fewer shows. The show doesn't make narrative sense if it's shorter. Yeah, so not to jump ahead, but if my overall thoughts on the whole park, and I still want to talk about Ministry of Magic. It's really well themed. Everything is well done. Restaurants are well themed. The bathrooms are well themed. They actually have different colored urinals in every land, which is kind of amazing.
Okay.
Getting in and out, super easy, right? They've got all the basics there. It's going to come down to ride reliability, weather, and ride capacity. Those are the challenges, right? I would say this though. Everything I've seen is promising enough that Universal should start construction of the 3 more big rides on the 3 more expansion pads that they already have. There's enough promise here right now. We know that it's inevitable they're going to do the 3 more rides. Just get started on them now to have the capacity. 100%. So let's talk about Harry Potter and the Battle of the Ministry. The single best, I haven't been on the ride because it was down. The single best queue I've ever been in my entire life. And it's hard to say what would be second in this point. You go in, to the land and you're in the flu system, right? Supposedly the interior line is big enough to hold 4 hours worth of people. So it's a long walk. Every foot of that queue is elaborately themed. You could just walk through the queue, and I did twice. Literally went back a second time just to walk through the queue. Every part of that queue is detailed and advances the story. It is incredible. So you get through the queue, right? You're the outside queue. You're coming up to the flu system. It looks like you're in a subway station. You are assigned to one of 5 flus. Each of them is numbered 901 through 905. Fun fact, those are the code numbers for each of the lands, each of the portals in Epic Universe.
Okay.
And so as you enter the flu, it's lit from underneath with a green light, and there's a fog effect. And the queue itself is curved sort of like a dollars and cents, like a cents sign. It's sort of like a C shape with, things on the other end. So you go in one end, you go around a corner, and just before you exit, there's another fog effect coming up from the ground. So you really can't see where you're going until you step through the fog, and there's green light as well. But you step through, and you're in the largest interior building I've seen outside of the Superdome in New Orleans, right? It's 4 stories of black tile, and it's the Ministry of Magic offices. And honest to God, the only regret I have from that entire day is that I will never see that queue again for the first time. Because I've seen pictures of it, right? You saw the construction stuff, right?
Sure. Yeah.
I looked at that and I was like, I can't believe they actually built it, I can't believe they actually went through and spent the money and spent the time to do the things the way that they were supposed to be done. It is astounding. The queue. The detail is incredible. As you walk through, you see the offices, and there are ceiling fans spinning in the offices, and there's the little, green shaded accountant's lamps in each of the, and each of the offices is decorated differently. Real people are there, slightly different, but my God, what a beautiful queue. And again, it's all glossy black tile, and even the doorways, because you go through a million doorways, right? All the doorways that are tiled have unique tile layouts. They're not just subway tiles, in a rectangular edge. Some of them are sloping like Art Nouveau. They go down and it looks like drapes, but drapes made out of tile around the doorway. I'm who does this? Who designed it? Who approved it? Who spent the money on it? All of those people deserve awards for going through it. Yeah. And so you go through a lot of different areas. They've got the talking portraits in it, and there's a lot of gags. There's a few other offices you go through, that, I won't give away the details, but it's a 4-hour queue. I would have spent $100 just to go to the park and go through the queue. Like, it's that good.
Well,
I don't need to go on the ride. I just want to see the queue again.
Well, just to be clear here, a friend of the show, a longtime friend, Seth Kabersky, actually did get on the ride and flat out said,
did he? Okay, I haven't talked to him since he did it. Okay.
Yeah, flat out said that it is the best theme park attraction he has ever been on. So
yeah, I mean, my feeling is the only Rise of the Resistance is a 5-star ride, and I think it is. Honestly, God, I think if Ministry, if the ride is as good as the queue, I'm going to knock down every other ride rating in Orlando because nothing else really compares. And this is the other thing, right? Like, if you think about what Epic Universe has, Ministry is a top-notch ride. I'm sure Monsters is going to be a top-notch ride. We've got Bowser's Challenge, Mario Kart, another top-notch ride. What other park has 3 5-star rides? And we could argue Guardians of the Galaxy and Soarin'. Epcot has 2, right? But 3.
Yeah. Len, did you leave the coaster out?
Oh, sorry. I did leave the coaster out. So Stardust Racers,
so that would give it 4.
Yeah, so could potentially have 4 because that's a 5-star coaster. Might be a little bit thinny. Maybe it's 4.5 stars. We could quibble, right? But if you think about very solid rides, every land has at least 1, right? Hollywood Studios has Rise of the Resistance, and don't get me wrong, I love Slinky Dog Dash, I love Tower of Terror, I love Rock and Roller Coaster, but Tower and Rock and Roller Coaster, even Millennium Falcon, which I don't think is a 5-star ride, those are all going to suffer in comparison. Rise is going to be the only thing there that can compete. Disney doesn't have a park with this many brand new super headliner attractions. And nothing that I've seen that they're planning has that either. This is, this is why I want Universal to build the next 3 rides. Because if they can build 3 more rides of the same quality as Ministry and the other rides, this will be either the best or second best park in Orlando. It would be bonkers to go to.
Toward that end, Len, and we will talk about this in a moment after the break, but the challenge, of course, to build 3 brand new rides now is, the tariffs, the financial disruption, and what that is actually doing to the themed entertainment industry. But again, we'll discuss that in a moment. But first, this.
Springfest deals are still in full swing at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 bags of Stay Green Premium Color 2 cubic foot mulch for only $10. And get up to 40% off select major appliances. Plus, save up to $300 when you buy 2 or more select GE kitchen appliances of $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/16, excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location while supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details and qualifying items.
And we're back. So before we get to financial disruptions, Len, you have some news about some discounts.
Right. So earlier this week, Disney announced a new Walt Disney World discount for Disney Plus subscribers. And it's pretty remarkable, which is why I wanted to talk about it on the news segment. So it runs June 29th through July 31st of this year, which includes the July 4th holiday. And that's unique. But as an example of the deals, you can get a $99 a night room plus tax, standard room at Disney's All-Star Sports Resort. And that is almost half of what the rack rate is. So anytime Disney comes out with a substantial discount, the questions I get from the media are, in context of other discounts Disney's offered in the past, how does this stack up? And I think, Jim, you and I were talking a couple shows ago about the 6 discounts that Disney released about 3 weeks ago. And that, some of them were interesting. The kids ticket discount was interesting. But in terms of historical stuff, it wasn't really that great. This one, on the other hand, the closest comparable discount I could find to $99 a night at All-Star Sports in the year of our Lord 2025 was a spring 2009 deal that offered standard view rooms at $68 plus tax weeknights. And to put that in perspective, $99 a night in 25 is the equivalent of what $66.41 was in 2009. So we're within a cup of coffee of the $68 plus tax of 2009. Gentlemen, the spring of 2009 was notable for which crisis was that one? I'm losing count.
All together now. The Great Recession.
Great Recession.
What is it? These days they call it the financial correction of 2008.
Sure.
And, the ripple effect. But I mean.
So in 2009, I was still with American Express. I remember in January, my vice president coming to me and saying, we're all going to be fine, but we're not bringing in any consultants this year, and the projects that we're doing are all internal. Keep your head down and we'll make it through the year. It was that kind of thing where it's just like, everyone shut up and do your job.
There we go.
All right. And we'll all get through this. But the panic was palpable. That's how bad 2009 was. So for this discount to come out means Disney's under a lot of pressure from a lot of different angles. On the one hand, we've seen that international tourism is dropping very, very fast. So the last thing I saw for Orlando was that air traffic from Canada was down roughly 75%. And Canada is the single largest source of international visitors to Disney. In terms of tourism to the state of Florida, international visitors make up 9.9%. But for Disney and Universal theme parks, it's probably closer to 20%. So not only do they make up 1/5 of the visitor numbers, roughly 1/5, they stay longer and spend more money because they can't go home at night, right? And so to put that percentage in perspective, to lose 75% of 20%, 15% right off the top of your visitors, Disney now has to make the parks more affordable for almost another quintile of American households by income. We've said on the show before that Disney targets the top 20% of American households by income. They make $264,000 on average. The next lowest quintile, the 60th to the 80th percentile, doesn't make $264,000 a year. They make $115,000 a year, less than half. So the gold standard for discounts during 2009, if you guys remember, was Disney offering a buy 4 days, get 3 days free ticket, right? Almost 50% off. The issue is that new quintile that we're talking about, the family making $115,000 a year, can't afford the 4 days to begin with. So they have to discount more than that. If we start seeing ticket discounts in the 2 or 3 day range, then we're in uncharted territory. And that's sort of like the next thing that I'm looking at. Like, I don't think this is the end of the discounts for reasons we're about to talk about.
I mean, in fact, think about it. We just spent almost a full hour talking about the brand new sexy thing, Epic Universe.
Yeah. And Disney knows they have to build rides to compete with that. Despite what Bob Iger said about them building attractions for the last 10 years to deal with Epic Universe. I actually tried this with Laurel. Did I tell you guys this?
No.
It was our anniversary recently, and I was like, oh, baby, I didn't get you flowers because I bought you flowers 6 months ago, and I was planning ahead for this.
So how was it sleeping on the couch that night, Len?
It was remarkably cold, actually. It's leather. It was not great. So,
okay.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I think if this is actually a very good deal. If you're going in July, go ahead and book this deal now, but make sure that it's refundable in case something else comes out. We're going to talk about this in a second, but I think there's more than just international tourism pressure on Disney right now.
Oh, no.
So let's talk about tariffs. So Jim Shull, correct me if I'm wrong here, but my understanding is that Imagineering needs to get approval from the board of directors for any project that costs more than a certain amount of money, and I think that level is $1 billion. You don't have to say what the exact number, but is that ballpark?
It's ballpark. I mean, again, remember this. The Disney company is a publicly traded company. So like any publicly traded company, they face financial responsibility and fiduciary responsibility. So they have to go and dot all the I's. So, Disney or any big company has to go to the board of directors to get a sign off on any new projects they have. Now, there is a barrier beyond which now they're committing a lot of money, and so they need a lot of approval. And
Yeah.
when you're talking about the kind of big projects that Bob Iger has touted, such as the Cars Land, the Rivers America closing, Monsters Land, Monxtropolis,
whatever's happening in
Villains
Mission
Land,
Courtyard.
all of these are big ticket items. So
Yeah.
you need approval, and you need approval to spend a lot of money.
Yeah, let me just say that, like, I understand the appeal of tariffs in the abstract sense. Like, I am all for American manufacturing returning. I am a fan of manufacturing jobs. There's a variety of reasons. Everything from, good union paying jobs to national defense for the United States to build up its manufacturing capacity more. Like, I'm in favor of that in the abstract. It's the devil's in the details, right? So, Jim Shull, when you talk about, like, all the projects that are happening. So Cars Land hasn't started yet. Villains Land hasn't started yet. Monstropolis hasn't started yet. And whatever we're getting in Animation Courtyard hasn't started yet. Okay.
All right. Let's define what start means. Okay. So when you're designing
we've got some ideas. But
you've got some ideas. You've got some design. You've paid some consultants. You've got some drawings. What you haven't done is you haven't bought a contractor's time to build the actual facility.
Yeah, Disney doesn't do all of this. Yeah, Disney hires people.
You hire people, and when you sign the contract with like a Vekoma or an Intamin, a Dynamic Attractions or a Roos, that's when you get serious. You've committed money, capital money, to that ride system around which you're going to be placing your facility building. Before you do that contract, it's a lot of money, but it's not spending on the level you're about to. And that's where it's different. We talked earlier in the show. Comcast pulled an inside straight. They opened Epic Universe. It's done. Everything that they ever wanted to buy has been bought. Disney's not in that same position right now. They need to bite the bullet and decide if you want to build a Villains Land or if you want to build a Cars Land, you've got to sign a big ticket contract with a ride vendor. You've got to sign
not just a ride vendor, right? I mean, for let's just take Cars Land as an example. There's got to be 100 vendors for Cars Land.
101 vendors to be precise. Yeah, it's not. It's all the stuff that we don't think about. It's electrical wiring. It's costuming. It's lighting. If you want to buy lighting,
paint, right?
You've got to buy lighting. Okay, I need rigging. I need control systems. Those aren't all built in the United States.
No.
And to do that, you have to go outside the United States to a factory, to technicians and engineers who are specifically trained to do this kind of stuff. Can you bring it back to the U.S.? Well, it took about 2 generations to get it out of the U.S. So if you want to start the clock, we'll see you in, let's see, this is 2050.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the point is, like, Disney and its contractors import a lot of raw material and a lot of finished materials from other countries, right? So I went back and looked at where Disney buys its coaster systems from. And Jim Shull, my guess is a complicated modern ride system these days is somewhere between, and I'm just ballparking here, $50 and $100 million.
At least. Yeah. I mean, it depends upon the complexity, yes.
That's and none of them are built in the United States. Vekoma is in the Netherlands. Intamin's based in Liechtenstein. Dynamic Attractions is in Canada. And those 3 vendors have done Tron, Guardians, Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, Expedition Everest, Space Mountains, Maelstrom, Kali, Incredicoaster, Test Track, Soarin', Big Thunder Mountain, right? So all of the big rides are done by companies.
And Len, they just don't only build the rides; they certify them.
They service them exactly. Yeah.
Because one thing,
the spare parts, right?
Yeah, when something breaks down, you call them for a replacement. When you need documentations to show the government, you have them certify the engineering drawings.
Right. Now, Disney does use Roush for ride vehicles, like Rise of the Resistance, I believe, is Roush, right? But the larger point is, even if you're buying some system from the United States, where's the steel coming from for all this, right? Where's all the electronics coming from? The steel's coming from China. The electronics are coming from China or somewhere else, right? So tariffs become important. All right. So, and let me just give you an example of what WDI was going through last week. So imagine you've got 100 vendors, and it's probably more. You've got 100 vendors, each of whom have their own vendors, right? And you're trying to go to the board of directors and say, it's going to cost X dollars to build Cars Land. You have to go to 100 vendors and say, for your part, how much is your part going to cost? And then you come up with a giant spreadsheet, you do a presentation, right? There's hundreds of documents that are based on those numbers, right? You put it all together into a massive PowerPoint that you present to the board. Okay. 3 weeks ago, the average tariff rate for the Netherlands, because Vekoma is there, Intamin has an office there, was 2.7% in 2024. It was 2.7%. Okay. And again, the stated purpose of the tariffs is to address trade deficits and improve manufacturing. I get it. The United States, though, had a $55 billion trade surplus with the Netherlands as of 2024. A lot of it was oil, right? So we exported more to the Netherlands than we bought from the Netherlands. You would think then there's no trade deficit to address. But because the Netherlands is in the European Union, we went from 2.7% to 20% last week, even though the Netherlands has a trade surplus with the United States. Okay, so immediately, as soon as it went from 2.7% to 20%, Disney had to go back to 100 contractors and say, now how much does it cost? And each of those contractors had to go to each of their vendors and say, now how much does this cost? Right? Jim Shull, I'm imagining that it takes more than a week to get those answers and compile them.
It takes more than a week, Len, but also it takes the attention of those 100 vendors, because Disney is competing with other people. Steel manufacturer doesn't care whether they're making steel for your coaster or a refrigerator. And if there's an issue,
do you want to buy it? If not, go to the next person. Do you want to buy it?
Exactly. Yeah. And also there isn't a warehouse of just steel lying around. Hey, you want some coaster steel?
No,
hey, we can make a deal for you because we just so happen to have a deal this week on. No.
Yeah. They're not buying it on the spot market, right? They're buying it they're looking at future costs, right? And they're locking in, there's arbitrage that you have to do around the prices and stuff, right? You buy insurance against, prices fluctuating too much. It's super complicated to spend $1 billion, right?
It is. It's very hard to spend money, surprisingly.
Yeah.
But the reality then again is, you just went through a scenario which is accurate, but assume that's done and they wipe their brows and say, okay, we did it. Here's it.
So we adjusted down to 20% tariffs.
And then
it got dropped to 10% this week.
Yes.
Which means you start the entire cycle again.
Yes.
You go back to each vendor. And remember, there are hundreds of documents with thousands of quotes that you've got to keep together because it's your responsibility as a project manager to get those numbers right. You're going to get blamed if the numbers are wrong.
Well, and the estimator and the scheduler, all of these people work hand in glove with the project team to deliver the project. And if there's any sort of a hiccup along the process, it changes everything. And often it changes it to the point where you start over again.
Yeah, and that's what. Speaking of that, we're at 10% right now. There's a 90-day pause on the tariffs, but they could change again in 90 days, right? And just the amount of labor that goes into stuff like this is astounding. And again, I understand the point of the tariffs. I support the United States getting more manufacturing capability back. I get that, right? But if you're Disney right now, right, Epic Universe is going to open up. It's going to be good, right? Assuming they can get the ride capacity and ride reliability stuff right. They desperately need to build rides because the pipeline ran dry. They've got no new rides in 2025, no new rides in 2026. Hopefully 2027 we get Encanto, right? But they can't afford not to build rides. They have to build the rides. So at this point, they're in a pickle.
Oh, absolutely. Right? And in fact, there's the story from earlier this week that evidently Bob Iger dropped into an editorial meeting at ABC and got asked, well, how are you dealing with this? And he cited the example of, we have 2 huge cruise line ships, coming to the fleet. And, but we're in the process of the very thing you're talking about, the buying the steel, lining up the hundreds of folks or different companies that work on different aspects of this. And to have this level of chaos or confusion in relation to tariffs going up, going down, or being paused for 90 days, it's making things impossible.
Well, the term is also uncertainty. The word I'd use is uncertainty. Disney World and Epic Universe aren't going away. If they delay building something at, in Animal Kingdom by a year, the park doesn't close. It just means that there's delay. And in this environment, the uncertainty is what is the biggest risk.
Yeah. So again, the tariffs might change in 90 days. I think there's a decent chance that none of the, like Encanto's getting built, right? The construction's already started. But for any project for which shovels are not in the ground, there's a very good chance that all of this just gets delayed until we have some level of certainty around what the tariffs are going to be, how long they're going to be in place, and then what retaliation is going to happen. Because I think we're recording this on a Friday, and I think didn't China not only did China just up its tariffs, but China also said it's going to restrict the number of U.S. films released in the country.
I was so happy to hear you.
Jim, I saw your face on the video.
As soon as I started talking, you brought that up, because it's like, for a Disney, and face it, we just had an animated film in China become one of the highest grossing films of all time. So of course, Disney and let's be honest here, Universal also, which has Illuminations and DreamWorks, would love to get animated films into China right now, because clearly there would be appetite. But it's like, no, reciprocal payback here. No, we're going to limit the number of American films that can come in.
Yeah. So we've got international visitor numbers dropping. Mm-hmm. We've got a competitor down the street that looks very good. We've got no ability to price out the projects that we need to build if we're Disney. And then we've got our overseas markets starting to contract. That's just not great.
No. I mean, but the interesting thing is, remember, just in the last 5 years, we went through the pandemic and saw everybody had to sort of reinvent themselves during that period, figuring out how do you run the parks when, everybody has to be masked and we have to do social distancing, and how do we bring these things back online and back up to capacity. And we saw a similar thing happen with a theatrical. How do we exhibit our films? I mean, thank goodness at the same time Disney had just gotten Disney Plus up out of the ground. They had places to put things. But yeah, I mean, these things do happen. But the difference is, with the tariffs, this is not a disease coming out of nowhere. This is like, these are governments making these decisions to behave like this. So,
and there's some, with the pandemic, obviously it did a lot of damage to the economy. I mean, tons of damage. You knew eventually we would get a vaccine. And eventually things would come back. Whether that was a year or 2 years, right? And don't get me right, we're still feeling the effects of the pandemic. But for this, there's just so much unknown. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, you could say, we knew early in the pandemic it takes a year to develop a vaccine. Fine. We don't know when Canadian and international visitors are going to feel welcomed and safe coming back to the United States. 12 months? I don't know. Anyway, but Jim, this is not the first time that the company has gone through a period of uncertainty, right?
No, it is not.
Yeah, and what's interesting, in fact, it's Mr. Shull. When we were pre-gaming the show, you were talking about how sometimes what's happened in the past can give us a clue as to what might happen in the future, correct?
Right.
Oh, yes. I mean, there are a couple of times when they are absolutely positively sure, the Disney company, that they're going to do something that they have it announced. I mean, I remember the one time where the Main Street Theater project, well, that was going to be there off the hub, and it was going to be inspired by the Willis Woods Theater in Kansas City. And it was going to be built on the hub of Main Street, USA. Bob Chapek,
this was announced, right?
Yeah. More than announced. Bob Chapek at the 2017 DC Expo stood up in front of everyone to say, yes, this is going to be built. It's going to happen. Here's artwork. Here's everything, see you at the opening, to that effect. Mm-hmm. And it never happened.
Yeah, we still don't have it. We're still waiting. Yeah.
We're still waiting.
But what was interesting, that was more an internal decision after the fact. Whereas, for example, we've talked about this on the show. The Doors coaster. I mean, yes, we're about to see Muppet Vision go down, and then transformation of Muppet Studios into Monster Inc. land. But remember that back in July of 2008, we first learned that this idea was in the works, and that version was going to go into Soundstage 1 at then Disney MGM. And, it accidentally got loaded up to the portal, cast member portal early, and evidently was officially going to be announced in the fall. But toward the story you were telling earlier on in the segment about low ticket prices and low room rates in 2009, again, fall of 2008, we had the financial correction, and a number of projects that were on the books at that time just, Disney paused, and they never came back.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Doors Coaster, it did eventually come back 17 years later.
Right. Oh, that was the asterisk that they didn't tell you about during the cast video. Yeah, they were, Disney was so certain they were going to build that coaster. They even had the Monstropolis Inc. portal there at the end of
the street.
That's right. They had already put money on the table that they were going to be building that coaster.
It's funny that you mentioned this specific thing, because we are now, let's say it's April to May to June. We're now less than 2 months away from the closing of Muppet Vision 3D. And I'll say this. If Disney makes the announcement that Monsters isn't closing on June 7th, then we know something's up.
Yeah, it's not a good sign in any eventually. I mean, my one hope there would be that they've signed the contract with Vekoma for the coaster, and that project will occur. But as we said earlier, there are other projects that are further out into the future, like Villains Land. That may be more in the bubble in this downturn economy.
I guess the ticking clock here, Len, really is that May 7th, we have the next Disney earnings call. And
I'm not going to mention any names, but while I was on my cruise last week, by the way, thank you to Ruben Balling for substituting. I listened to the show.
Did a great job.
It's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting texts on the ship saying, when was the last time this happened? Like, when was the last time Disney offered this discount? Have you seen the international tourism numbers? And then when Delta announced that they couldn't provide forecasts or guidance for the rest of the year because of passenger numbers dropping and uncertainty, they were like, you have to be on the earnings call. Like, we'll buy tickets to listen to the Disney earnings call. Because remember, a month ago, Disney CFO Hugh Johnston was on record saying summer 2025 was looking stronger than 2024.
Yeah. And
I'm beginning to think that might not be true.
No. Though, again, just want to stress here that you were just praising Epic Universe, and I just want to revisit the fact that what's happened right now, this moment, is literally the third time's the charm. Because if we think back. 1990, June of 1990, when Universal first opened in Florida. At least two of the big attractions, Kong and Jaws, just didn't operate. Yeah. And Universal was literally forced at that point that if you bought a ticket, you got a free ticket to come back. Yeah. We jump ahead to 99 when Islands opens and has arguably what was the best theme park ride at that time, the Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man, but because they decided to rebrand the entire resort, make it Universal Escape, and effectively confused everyone in America. The fact that they'd opened a brand new theme park that had all of these state-of-the-art rides got lost in the fog of what the hell is a Universal Escape?
Exactly. Do you remember when they did that? Because I remember looking at that and thinking, this is the marketing equivalent of Hammer Pants. like. Who came up with this idea? And you knew instantly it was a fad and they were going to regret it in like 3 years. God, I remember that.
Try a year and a half.
Len, it gets better than that. I wrote them a letter.
Did you really? Like, what are you thinking?
What are you thinking? And they sent me back a letter that I still have to this day saying, we have tested this. It's been focus group tested. It's wonderful. People love it. 10 days later, they announced we're changing our name. But I can't, but the issue is, is the reality is Universal Studioscape sounds like a marketing campaign, something that would be a headline saying, here, come escape to Universal.
Yeah,
and
like
that's
Escape to
how
Florida.
people read it.
Yeah.
That's what people read it. But
you get
now
what they were shooting for, but
I get what they're shooting for, yeah. But
that's
at least
what they were shooting for. But before we, Jim and I were before we started this, we were pre-gaming. I told Jim my story when Island Adventure soft opened. I went in when it was legal and I could walk in the gate. And I'm walking through the park, enjoying the park. And when I get to the Jurassic Park restaurant, I hear a very familiar voice. It's the voice of Greg Emmer. Now, for those who don't know, Greg Emmer at one point he headed up all of the operations for, Disney World. And I looked over and there he was, but not just him, his entire team was taking
the opening
over
day of a Universal
the
theme park is
restaurant.
like a family reunion for Imagineering.
It was this amazing thing. And I looked at Greg and I thought, is there anybody working the Magic Kingdom right now?
Who's working today? No, we're all here.
We're all here. Yeah. And he grabbed me by the arm. I never got to eat my pommes frites, and we ran over to see Spider-Man before it broke down. We didn't, but we rode and stood in line until we finally did do it. But it was an example of, Universal, to their credit, keeps getting up and pitching again and again and again until they get it right.
And speaking of getting it right, think about it, Len. Okay, they before all of this chaos associated with the tariffs came about, Universal managed to get Epic Universe up and running. But wait, it gets better. They basically are effectively done with that standalone attraction that they're building out in Vegas, Universal.
The Halloween Universal Horror Unleashed. Yeah.
That will make it open this summer, and
all that stuff is bought. All the electronics are bought. Like all the contracts are signed. The prices are locked in.
There we go. And if we pivot now to the thing they're building in Frisco, Texas, the Universal Kids, the Texas equivalent of BioReconstruct evidently flew over the park recently, and they have, Mr. Shull, the term is a laydown yard. Is that correct?
Laydown yard. They take when the rides are delivered in containers, they break open the containers and lay everything out so they can assemble it on the site. And you're right. That flyover showed us that the rides are there and the track is there. And, so once again, Disney is not as lucky as Universal because everything for Frisco's project seems to be on site.
Yeah. I mean, third time's the charm, Len. 3 stateside things that will, there'll be some disruption due to the tariffs, but certainly not the situation that Disney's facing right now. And,
no, it's completely different. The timing has just worked out for them.
No, absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, folks, that's going to do it for our show today. You can help support our show by subscribing over at patreon.com/Jim Hill Media, where we're posting exclusive shows every week. Our latest videos with Imagineer Jim Shull. How about that? On the different iterations of Snow White's adventures. On next week's show, Jim gives us the mad history of Disneyland's Alice in Wonderland attraction. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. Jim Shull, where can people find more of you?
Len, people can find me over in Disney Journey with Jim Shull, which is my YouTube channel. Just like Disney Dish, I cover a lot of the Disney history in the theme parks from the vantage point of a retired Imagineer. Coming up, actually, will be a new show about this very subject we talked today, which is Universal, their park, and their new announced park for Great Britain. Show notes will have the link.
We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, who'll be contrasting Matisse's The Dam at Pont-Neuf with the Maintenant Viaduct as part of Air Quality, the influence of smog on European modernism at the Baltimore Museum of Jim's laughing and it's distracting me. At the Baltimore Museum of Art this coming Wednesday, April 16th, 2025 in beautiful downtown Baltimore, Maryland. While Eric and David are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim and Jim, this is Len. We'll see you on the next show.